So since we don't have a lot of, I guess, historical information, like how do we talk to our kids about the origins of Satan?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think a lot of people assume the Bible just kind of tells the story of where he came from,
Mm.
but it doesn't just spell it out. So most of the things we know about where Satan comes from are reading between the lines in passages that are really about other things. What we do know is this: God made Satan good. He didn't make him evil, and that's one of the things that kids often wonder about. But just like everything that God made good things, and whatever went wrong because those creatures chose to go wrong. So when we talk about Satan and kind of how he rebelled against God, we don't just have like the story out there. There's little bits and pieces, hints of things. We know that Satan was, a spiritual creature that God made to help run the universe behind the scenes, kind of like angels, the kind of that category of spiritual creatures. But at some point, he decided he didn't want to just kind of work for God. He wanted to be in charge. And so what he does is he attacks the people that God had put in charge of the world, which are Adam and Eve, and tries to get them to do what he wants them to do so that he can be the one who's running the show. But beyond that, we don't have the backstory narrative that we want. We just know that God made him good, and at some point he decided he just like humans did, he didn't want to serve God.
Mm.
Yeah, I think and this is, I don't want this to go on to a tangent, but I always find this like part of like the Bible story to be very interesting because it seems like Satan had already existed, right, by the time like creation happened and he the serpent appears to Adam and Eve in the garden. And the best picture I ever got of this was reading Paradise Lost by John Milton. There's an entire like story that's happening like in the cosmos, right, between like good and evil. So it's like this whole thing of like, did evil always exist or did it exist at one point in time? So again, that's a whole different topic. But I think that's interesting. Like when we talk about like the origins of Satan and like when this all came about, like we don't have the biblical information to know, right, for certain.
Yeah. So when Milton's writing that, he's using his imagination. He's trying to speculate about what could be. He's really writing a fantasy that has moral truth in it. But we don't actually have that story in the Bible.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I think what you said about, you said, Satan wanted to be in charge. And I think this is such a temptation for all of us today. Like to be in charge, to like be the leaders of our own lives, to, be the leaders of whatever company we're over or whatever, and not follow Christ. And it's like such a big warning to look at, like, I guess you could say, like the life of Satan and to see like what that kind of pride and desire can get you into. It's really interesting to think about.